Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls and people. It's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode. I'm joined by a special guest. Everyone is a special guest. I'm joined by Quintrel Lenore, or as I like to affectionately call him, Q. So this brother, it's funny. I think we were at JMU the same time, but I don't think we overlapped or talked or whatever. He's too popular. He was on the football team. I don't know how that life worked, but coincidentally, our lives intersected in regards to higher ed. And then being in Virginia. And I still remember one of the earliest conferences or base we met. Did you go to that one in Henrico, the professional development thing in Henrico?
Yeah, that's where we first kind of chopped it up at.
We did chop it up. You, Samir, and I met at that. And then there, the conference. And then from there, it's just been a really good relationship and to see you grow. But, not unfortunately, fortunately, he left higher ed, but I stayed in touch. And he's doing remarkable things with his business, his music, his books, all these things. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we get into it, Q, tell the listeners a little bit about who you are.
Man, I appreciate that, Phil. Before I get started, man, I want to thank you, man. You are a very creative person. You're somebody that's a thought leader in my book. When we first met, I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and you talked about podcasts. Like, honestly, I didn't really know too much about podcasts, right? And you talked about the Positive Philter podcast back then, right? You've been going strong for at least as far as I've known you, that's 4 or 5 years now. And so I want to give you your flowers, brother, because you are somebody that I've looked up to as a creative, as a professional. The work that you're doing as a podcaster, as an entrepreneur. And I see you doing the work with various organizations in higher ed, man. You're killing it, brother. And we need more brothers like you doing it. And so I want to give you flowers. Big kudos to you, Phil. I appreciate you, boss, man.
I appreciate it. And so, we're going to talk about, your latest work, your book, Purpose Driven Career. But I also want to just do a elevator pitch of like, what has your career journey been so far to this point? And I mean, you could take as long as you want. It could be the whole episode, but obviously, maybe let's just really, tell it. You don't have to say when I was in the 10th, whatever grade I was going to go to NFL. Now, don't start there. Let's just talk about college, and then from there,
Yeah.
because we could go way back. But from college on, like get into this space, career development, all that stuff.
For sure, man. So my background, my entryway, honestly, has been athletics, Phil. So I was lucky enough to go to JMU on a football scholarship. If it weren't for playing sports and playing football, I would have not been academically eligible to go to, a 4-year institution like JMU, right? So that's always been my entry level. And I learned very quickly when I got to school, 2 things, like, your GPA doesn't determine your trajectory. And I learned how to learn, right? And so not being not having a high GPA when I got to school, I realized quick, like the playing field is pretty much equal. So long story short, if it weren't for athletics, I wouldn't have been able to get to school. And that's pretty much how my career started. So I was interested in sports performance. My mentors at the time, when I think about being a first-year sophomore on campus, were my weight training coaches. So shout outs to Coach Durnan, Coach Beach, Coach Jones. Those were the most influential professionals in my early career. And so I remember having informational interviews with them before I even know what an informational interview was, saying, how do you get to where you are as a strength coach, right? And so long story short, that's what I started off. I majored in kinesiology, and I went off to intern, at Bridgewater College. I interned at Mississippi State University, and I started this career of sports performance. And so I was lucky enough to be a head strength coach at Shenandoah University, and before that, an assistant strength coach at James Madison with the Olympic sports. But somewhere along my journey, I realized that my values and my interests were kind of clashing, meaning that, I had a young family. So my wife, when I was at Shenandoah University at the time, she was pregnant with our first son, Isaiah. So this was like what, nine, close to 10 years ago. And I had to ask myself, like, all right, do you want to do this? Can you do this for the long term? You don't get paid a lot of money being a sports performance coach. So that was clashing. And the fact that I spent, 60, 70 hours, at work, knowing I have a young family. If anybody's not familiar with sports performance in a college setting, a lot of those guys get divorced, or a lot of them have relationships that are very strained. So I was like, I don't want that. So I started, exploring. And so the power of network is really powerful. So I realized that, if I want to do anything, I probably need to go back to school. So as a head strength coach at Shenandoah, I just got plugged back in at JMU because that's my alma mater. And shout outs to Miss Casey Carter. She is the matriarch of, I would say anything athletics at JMU. So I essentially, fast forward, I was this unqualified strength coach applying to be an academic advisor for student athletes. Miss Casey Carter took a really good gamble on me, and the then head coach at the time, Everett Withers, took a gamble on me to be able to support his student athletes, his football guys. And that's how I transitioned over to, I would say, higher ed in this student development. So fast forward, I've been lucky enough to work in higher ed for about, I would say, like 6 years, going from an academic advisor to a career advisor. I've went to transition from DMU to VCU to work in employee development. And then I transitioned out of higher ed about 2-3 years ago to working in state government, and now I work in ed tech. So that's kind of been my career pathway, if you will.
I love it, man. That was great. And I love that overview. And like, don't sell your short, because I think one of the things you really spoke to is that you're just a naturally good guy and people want to be around you. And I think that it spoke to why I can definitely see you being pulled into spaces and people seeing growth opportunities. Like when you came back to JMU, they said, okay, can I work with Q? Yes, we can teach them how to do advising, but the intangibles there, like being a good worker, quality person, values, and all that. And so talk about that. Like, I think that first pull, right? Like you were now working, you were on the other side, working with student athletes as an advisor. Where did the light bulb go off and say, okay, I'm on the I'm actually working with people that were me, the football team, that I want to do some more with this. I want to do some more in education.
Yeah, man. I'll be honest, Phil, I would have never thought of myself being an academic advisor, let alone for student athletes. So a big part of my story is I was kicked off the football team. I was going into my junior year. And I had some very bitter experiences as a student athlete. As a 35-year-old adult, I'm so appreciative of being kicked off the football team. I'm appreciative of those challenges. I'm appreciative of Mickey Matthews giving me an opportunity and giving me some tough love. I'm appreciative of, just the hardships I face, because it's helped me to learn, right? I've had to realize emotional intelligence and hard work and just your attitude and professionalism. Those are real things that as a 18, 19, 20-year-old young person, student athlete, I just didn't have figured out. So anyways, the why behind going back to being an academic advisor was, too often what happens is, young Black kids that are student athletes that are lucky enough to go to college, people see us as these, very athletic, strong, fast people, but they don't know that underneath all that, physical shell, there's a lot of like just disadvantages. There's a lot of like underdevelopment. So I say that to say, what ends up happening, a lot of us, we come from some backgrounds that are where they're underprivileged. So seeing your parents or somebody go to college, get a degree, and get a great job is not a common story that we see. So the dreams that we're constantly gravitated to is like, I need to make it to the league, or I need to be an entertainer, right? I need to be a rapper, right? Those are the two dreams young Black men are sold too often. And so my why behind being an academic advisor is like, you're getting a 4-year degree, and yes, you're a student athlete. But most of these guys are not going to go to the league. And so I've seen time and time again where they get a 4-year degree and they just go back to the crib and they work. No disrespect to working in retail or customer service or any service jobs, but they're now underemployed. You got a 4-year degree and you have this great experience. Being a student athlete is work experience. You got this great work experience, but you don't even know how to leverage it, right? So that was my why behind being an academic advisor. I wanted to help young guys like myself that look like me, came from places like me, to, accelerate their careers, to dream big, right? To think about doing something other than, going to the league. And if you get the luxury of playing in the NFL, that's awesome, man, right? Most of us are not going to go to the NFL. So I want us to think about how you can leverage your experience in college to a very long, productive future in the workforce and in the community, man. So that was my why behind being an academic advisor.
I mean, I love it. It's almost like, and I know you're really connected to other JMU football players doing that kind of thing and talking about the life beyond sports. I can't think, what's his name? He wrote the book. He wrote a book too, just like you. We're going to talk about it, but your book. But who's the other one?
Van Lee. Yes.
Yeah, Van Lee. Yeah, Van Lee. Yeah. And so
purpose over position.
Yeah. And but I'm just saying that theme came up in my head is like, a lot of people need to share these stories. You're sharing these stories and living it. And, and I'm thinking about my friends that played college ball. Like one of my best friends, Justin, he went to Boston College and, has a life beyond, his football and stuff like that. And so it's just like this narrative that we need to teach. And you're on the other side. So what made you think, okay, how did you pick what master's program? Because you could have been like, okay, while I'm the advisor, and I'm assuming when you worked at James Madison, it was free, right? Tuition is covered by your employment. What made you decide to study what you studied and maybe say, oh, maybe I can get an MBA and do something else? What gravitated to your actual discipline in your master's program?
Yeah, good question. So I'm gonna be 100 bands with you. So two things. One, my master's degree actually wasn't paid for through JMU. Because when I got my master's, I started it when I was at Shenandoah University. So this is a small private school.
Yeah.
My wife, she was going back to school at JMU to get her graduate degree in college student personnel. And my wife, honestly, was the person, I as a competitor, as somebody that plays sports, I was like, hold on, she gonna get a master's degree. I'm gonna get a master's degree. She ain't about to out degree me. So that was kind of the why behind it. But in transparency, since she started before me, my wife would be coming home talking about, all these career theorists like Chickerins and Collins and Donald Super. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like she'll be telling me all about these group, the group dynamics or group studies that she had with her peers. And I have no clue what she's talking about. She's just telling me all this stuff. But what was happening, it was sticking with me, right? It was like subconsciously, it was kind of sticking. And I, like, at the time, working in athletics as a sports performance coach, what ended up happening is I was asking myself subconsciously, like, what do you want to do next? Because I saw the end, like, I don't want to be a sports performance coach forever because it's not sustainable for a family. So I was negotiating values and interests of my own. And what was happening, my wife was giving me subconsciously some language to wrestle with my values and interests. So what was happening is, like, I started asking myself as a strength coach, what is it that you like about this? And I did like designing a program, but what I love is after every session or between sessions, I was having a lot of these mentoring conversations. Like I would be talking to my student athletes, talking about their relationships, how they're doing in the class. I would be talking about life after the sports, some of the sidebar convos they had with their own peers and their sports coaches. And I didn't realize, like, I enjoyed that the most, right? So I asked myself, like, how can I do that as a career? And, my wife helped piece that together by her telling me what she was learning. And so she was learning about college student personnel, human services. And I was like, all right, bet. I want to figure out that. How can I do a career in that? So that's how I chose my grad program. I applied for a sports management program at JMU, and I did not get in. I graduated undergrad with a 2.3 GPA. I went to the department head at the time, trying to give my elevator pitch. I'm glad that I got rejected from that program, right? Because it wouldn't have led me to where I am professionally today. So I applied for a Master's of Human Service program at Liberty University because it was broad enough for me to do what I wanted to do professionally, and it touched on some of those career theory and the student development stuff that my wife was exposing me to. So that's how I ended up choosing my grad program. So that's kind of the synergy between like my values and interests that I was negotiating and the pain points that I was facing in my career.
Man, okay. I'm smiling because I have so many comparisons to that. Shout out to our wives for leading the way. My wife got her master's first, and I had that same chip on my shoulder. And two, quick story and a little sidebar. My wife studied social work at JMU. And she was like, Philip, you like talking to people. I think you should join this program when I transfer there. And I said, hell no, there's no guys in that. There's no guys in that program.
Yep.
And then come to find out, I started working. I like working with people, and I got a master's in counseling. So shout out to our wives for seeing the things that we like and helping us lower, I guess, our preconceived stigma or whatever we had about it. I joke about it. I was like, maybe if I would have took her advice earlier, maybe I would have got it earlier, right? Because I would have got an undergrad in social work and got a master's quickly, but I had to live my own life, right? I had to work. And then when I was working, I was like, I think I need to go back and get a master's like you. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll do something with kids. I like talking to people I'm going to apply for a master's program in counseling. Long, by the way, it took me like way longer than I could have, but I had to follow my own path. I love that.
Facts.
So we're going into it, right? And we are going to fast forward. And I just want to get right to the heart of it. We call purpose-driven career. This is the name of your new book. I think that we've also seen the small nuggets of how this has led you to this point. You've always, like, all these decisions that you've made have been very purposeful with what is important to me. Family's important, so I'm going to do something that gives me more time with my family. But take us to the beginning point of like the idea of creating your own book and being your own author. Take us to that.
Yeah. So the book is called Purpose-Driven Work, Aligning Your Dreams. Purpose-Driven Work, Aligning Purpose with Your Dreams, Callings, and Career. So I gotta be 100 bands with you. If it were not for Vad Lee, so shout outs to Vad Lee. If Vad Lee did not write his book, Purpose Over Position, there would be no purpose-driven work, right? So this is the power of whenever you walk in your dream, right? Whenever you listen to God and you're faithful to the vision and the calling that you have, whenever you do it, you are going to impact somebody else. So this is why it's important for us to not look like on social media, not be hampered down by what we see from other people doing. You need to live out your calling, because what's going to happen is when you do it, you're going to inspire somebody else, right? So shout outs to Vad Lee, man. I joined Vad for a speaking event earlier this year. He had a speaking event at Coastal Carolina. He's a very dynamic speaker, very powerful. One of the quotes that he pulled out of there, and I'm going to keep quoting him, is going to eventually become my quote because I'm going to say it so often. Vad said that living your dreams allow the capacity for others to live their dreams, right? So that's very powerful. So that's how my book got started, man. Vad, he kind of he brought me and a couple guys behind the scenes in his writing process, and I got a chance to just to see like him writing a book. He sent me his manuscript, and I just thought it was so weird, right? Like, bro, what are you doing? Like, I didn't say that to him, but how dare you write a book, right? But I say that in a good way, right? I love that he's very unapologetic and faithful and just driven, because that inspired me, right? I never seen a young Black man write a book. So when he wrote it, I was like, eventually fast forward, I was like, man, what is the why that drives me? And so as I mentioned earlier, Phil, being a student athlete, I seen, I play ball with guys that have got 4-year degrees and then have gotten felonies because they didn't have productive. They didn't know what to do with their life. I've seen people transition from the military with like 15, 20 years, and you have 20 years of experience and skills, and you get stuck. I've seen people, be 40, 50, 60 years old, and they have an established family, and they let their dreams die. They've chosen to not start a business or, use their creative craft. They just let it die because responsibilities, the heaviness of life. So that's where the book came from. And I really want to be intentional with that message, because all of us are going to get stuck or have been stuck in our lives. And, the heart of the book is not exclusively about what to do professionally, but it's about our dreams. Like, sometimes our work is just a means to an end to fund our lives. But I think God gives us a greater calling, right? A greater purpose. Your calling is not married to a 9-to-5 whatsoever, right? And then dreams are powerful. Dreams are not childish. In the book, I talk about this kid. He's not a kid, he's a grown man. Jimmy Moreland. I forget where he's playing now, but he was drafted by the Washington Commanders. But I was his academic advisor. Jimmy's story, he got kicked off the football team, I think maybe his sophomore year or so. His first year, he was like a, all-American, all-conference player. He got in some trouble, got kicked off the team. But I saw him scrap and claw his way back into the football program. And it was because of his dreams, right? He knew no different. He grew up in Florida, and I'm sure that all he's kind of dreamed of as a young kid is going to the league. So dreams are not childish. If it weren't for Jimmy's dreams of playing in the NFL, he probably wouldn't have put forth the time and effort and energy when he was kicked off the team to get back in the good graces of the program. So the point that I'm trying to make here is the why behind the book stems from us getting unstuck, us not having purpose in our lives, us kind of having to negotiate and navigate these challenges and barriers with the work that we do. That's kind of the why behind purpose-driven work, man.
No, man, this is like giving me goosebumps. Also, I just thought about it. The author that I was trying to think of was Eugene Holloman. So that's 3 football players. Y'all need to have like a what is this? Was a GMU Dukes Authors Club, man. Y'all got like 3 authors on a football team. There might be another one out there. They literally, y'all are cranking it.
Shelton Johnson is another guy. Shelton Johnson has a book series. And then Arthur Mose has a book as well. So
y'all have a book club. Look at that. And that's amazing, because I love and I smile because you said that earlier, like, who is this dude to, put out a book? And now we just named 3 people or 4 people that are creating books, evergreen things to share the purpose, and the reaching that you're going to do is going to reach so many people to normalize that as Black men, you're more than just athletes. You're athletes, your fathers, your authors. This is amazing. Like, this is crazy. And so one of the things you're talking about, getting people unstuck. I know there was a time in the process where you probably got stuck. So take us through when you were starting the process. You started writing your first draft, you put it on the back burner. How, did you get stuck in that process of writing this book?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the process for writing this book, it's a little bit, I guess, for me, it's different. I don't naturally see myself as a writer. I'm a rapper. I've been rapping since I was in college, and I love hip hop. I just like guys, like just lyrical guys, folks spitting bars, right? So if I'm being honest, the heart behind the book was, how can I have a creative way for people to hear my music? Because hip hop is not everybody consumes hip hop the way that I do or likes it, the way I do. The person that honestly inspired me to write a book was Lecrae. He wrote this book called I Am Restored. He had a double concept album called Restoration and I Am Restored. And in his book, he references his songs. So I was like, hold on, I can do that, right? So again, like, seeing is believing sometimes. Like, I got an example of like, okay, I really want people to hear my music. How can I do that? So for me, I have always struggled with putting out music. I have not put out a lot of music in the last 10 years of me being a creative. And that's primarily because of insecurity. What are people going to think about me? What does it look like to be a 30-year-old, 35-year-old rapper? You know, am I trying to go, like to the club and perform? Those are things that I've wrestled with. So my biggest barrier, Phil, to be honest with you, is just being a rapper and trying to release music. So I was trying to trick myself to put out music, essentially. The writing process for the book was not hard. And this is my experience. I sat down probably between 8 to 10 times to write this book. It did not take a long time. So I started writing this book probably of maybe October of last year, October of 2022, and the book was published December of 2022. So my writing process didn't take a long time. It literally took about eight to 10 days to write it. Now those days were spread across, those 2 months. So the reason why is like for me, when I started writing, I just needed those 2-hour sessions to get it down, and then I go back and kind of wordsmith it. But the writing process was not a long time. So hopefully that encourages anybody out there. I think a barrier that we kind of over contemplate things in our mind and say, man, I can't do it. I'm not really a creative writer. If you read my book, you are going to find some mistakes. You're going to find a lot of mistakes, right? Don't let that hang you up. Perfection. It just gets people. It's a barrier for a lot of folks. So if you're shooting for perfection for anything that you produce, that could keep you from releasing it, right? So don't just be mindful of that. But yeah, to answer your question, for me, the music was the hang up, right? So I have a double concept project. The album is called PDL Work, and the book is called Purpose Driven Work. And so the concept together is how can I help people to get unstuck in their dreams, their callings, and careers.
I love that. So are you in the process now, the music side now? You did the book part, now you're doing the music side?
It's actually out there, man. It's actually out there. One of the things that's a struggle, and I'll land with this, is like, I'm not a marketer. I'm a creative. So marketing is a whole nother area of growth for us as entrepreneurs and creatives. Like, so I have not promoted my book or the music often at all. But to answer your question, I released them both at the same time. You can stream PDL Work on all platforms. I personally, I like the music that I make. I think it's a cool project. But yeah, man, it's out there.
No, I love it. And obviously I listen to your stuff. You always send me stuff. I sometimes, like, I got all my friends I want to support. And it's like, I got to like re-engage and say, okay, I need to go down the rabbit hole. And I'm going to do that. Like, I got so many books to read that I like to support people that I know. And now it's like, it's funny because I like to support people I know. Well, now I know like 20 different people. I was like, how am I going to read all these books? So, like, what I'm saying? So it's crazy. Like, it's a creative space. Like, and I'm thinking about that now, just talking to you. It's like, I'm surrounding myself with authors. I'm surrounding myself with other podcasters. I'm surrounding myself with entrepreneurs. So ways like, I'm thinking this right now. This is an authentic question. How can someone support you and the things you're doing in regards to like the business of life?
It's a good question. So the first thing I'll say is I don't want anybody to feel pressure to support me, especially like when it comes financially. The biggest way that somebody can support me is just through verbal encouragement, man. My friend Shelton Johnson, I call him OG. He's, he was somebody, we played football together. And I seen him as my big bro. And when I saw Shelton release books and he produces films, like this dude is like, his stuff is out there. Like, you can watch he directs and creates films. His stuff is on Amazon, like right now. So the point I'm making is like, he never pressured me to purchase his stuff. And he's really like, when you're in your own lane, you don't necessarily need other people's approval. So I've always struggled with people's approval and affirmation. So the best way folks can support me is through just verbal encouragement. Obviously, if you go and stream the music, if you go and purchase a copy of the book, that's very supportive because I'm investing those funds back into scaling this business. But yeah, that's just it, man. Just kind of verbal affirmation, to be honest with you.
Well, I love this too. Support, and I love, you said I've sent you, it helps you think about podcasting. So maybe talk about some of that support continuously through your journey. Like maybe when you finish a draft, did you send it to review, or just that process of people supporting that actual craft of the book, for you during the process.
Yeah. So in terms of like the creation of the book, I used a gentleman really, he's a friend of mine. His name is Dante Sharp. So he has his own writing business. So he's a technical writer. He's a higher education professional. And so I wanted to invest in somebody else's dream with me. Right. So he's never, reviewed or edited a book, but I want him to get his business started as well. So he's the one that reviewed my book. So shout outs to Dante Sharp. His business is called Sharp Thoughts LLC. So Google him. I think he has stuff on social media. So if you need somebody to edit your book, review, and it's not just books, he does copy editing, technical writing, stuff for like corporate organizations. So shout outs to Dante. But yeah, that was the process. My wife is awesome. And I say that in a very good way. She's restorative, and she's a very critical thinker, critical person. Like she will give you the 100. So I let her read my book, and it hurt me because she gave me a lot of feedback. Right. So she helped in the editing process. If it wasn't for my wife Lorea, my book wouldn't be as polished as it is. And there's still mistakes, right? I had a very strong opinion about certain content being in there, but she helped edit my book and give me some feedback as well. So that was the process. Between those 8 to 10 sessions that I sat down to write, I had Dante review my manuscripts. And on the back end of, when I had the final manuscript, my wife, she tore it up, man. She tore that bad boy up. So that was the process. So it wasn't anything super complicated at all.
So let's say, I want people to write the book, right? Write the book. I want people to read the book. But, like if you were like doing an elevator pitch and there's like 3 things, if I took your book, I'm going to apply these 3 lessons to my life from this book. What would be those 3 things that, I read it and this is something I'm going to do today because I read this purpose-driven career book?
Absolutely. So I would say this: the first thing, God created us all for a purpose. When I think about religion pushes people off and politics pushes people off, but we have to realize that we were all created, right? If your car broke down, you're going to go back to the manufacturer to fix that bad boy because they're the ones that they created it. They know the nuts and bolts. So the first thing I would say to somebody is, if you want to know what your purpose is in life, that's the big takeaway from the book. The second thing is this: operating in this in the world of work, you're going to get stuck. Primarily, it's going to be mental barriers that keep you stuck. Like, I can't do this, or I'm not good enough to do that. I don't got enough time to do this. I don't have enough money. So the second takeaway is like you getting unstuck as you navigate your dreams, callings, and careers. Like, there's some practical career development theory. There's some biblical principles, and there's some practical experiential learning principles that I leverage to help people to get unstuck as they navigate their career. I would say the last takeaway is thinking outside the box. We have to zoom out sometimes and realize, like, me and you, we live in 2023. We live in the era of information, right? If you go back 100 years ago, or maybe 150 years, that was the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, where people work service jobs, right? You had people that, like the Henry Fords of the world, that own these large conglomerates. But most folks, we're gonna work in a factory. So the idea of having this dream job, this is a new construct. So the point that I'm trying to make is thinking outside of the box with the work that you do. We don't have to be married to the idea of like your 9 to 5 being the ultimate source of purpose, right? If we go over to Africa or a third world country, everybody has a small business. Like, the economics of that community are not sustained without a small business. So I want us to think outside of the box with purpose when it comes to like the actual work. So those are the 3 things right there. Focusing on God as your purpose. Second is practical ways to get unstuck. And the third is thinking outside of the box with your world of work.
Well, I'm a believer of God as well. And I think the intertwining of purpose is the belief in a greater creator and being and intertwining that with purpose gives you hope and optimism and also builds resiliency. And there's studies that have shown that faith is also really good for, I mean, really good, but is part of your well-being, right? Like if I believe the work that I'm doing serves a greater purpose than me, it fills me up. Even if it's as simple, like you say, it could be a service job, but if that person that's doing that service job feels like they're feeding the community and has a purpose, it makes them feel good. So I think there is a space, and not a space, but there's definitely the integration of God in that and purpose in that for your well-being. So I love that you brought that up. Talk about the moment the book dropped and what was your feelings like, and you know, who you're sharing it with. Just talk about that first. That I guess album drop, but that book drop. How did that feel, and what was like?
Absolute dread, absolute fear. It never feels good for me because I'm more of a creative than a business person. It never feels good to release any kind of work. Erica Badu, she says something like, I'm sensitive about my craft, right? So I feel that same sentiment. Now, how is it going to be received is kind of like at the top of my mind. What are people going to think? Keep in mind, I have all of these editing mistakes, and I come from that. Me and you come from academia. What are my peers and colleagues going to think of when they read my book and I got all these editing mistakes? Or I'm promoting a rap album and I work in the corporate space. What are key stakeholders and my peers and my bosses? What are they going to think about a rapper, a Christian rapper promoting their stuff? So I think, the feeling of dread and fear and insecurity are the things that came to the top of my mind when I first released it. But I think how I've navigated that is just surround myself with thought leaders and content and scripture, probably more importantly, to help encourage me. Around the same time, I bought this book called You by Dr. Eric Thomas, is back there. Another guy, Dr. Darius Daniels, he has another book called Your Purpose is Calling. Your calling, your purpose is calling. I'm plugged into my local church. So the point I'm making here is like I've been surrounding myself and my brain and just being in an ecosystem that reaffirms how I should be thinking, to encourage me to not focus on like myself, but focus on like how God is going to use the work. So that's kind of how I've been navigating, and those are the feelings that I felt early on.
Now, but then it didn't go like that. Like I said, it's like you rip the Band-Aid off, you're doing it. Talk about, I mean, I'm proud of you. I got the book. Like you did it. What was some of the people like you did it, like some of the positives that came out after you dropped it?
Yeah, man. People like yourself, shout outs to Samara Reynolds. She's your mentor, my mentor. I got people like in my friend circle that have given me affirmation. Probably the biggest one, it sounds weird, but my wife just being proud of me, man. I'm kind of getting choked up thinking about it.
That's not. Can I just pause real quick? That is not weird. I think I'll be honest. All these awards I've gotten so far, I've gotten the most juice when it was someone like my wife or my parents are proud of me. So I just wanted to say, like, you're not alone on that. That's if a stranger or someone's like, "Oh, I'm proud of you," I'm like, all right, whatever. But when I hear that, from my wife, who sees me day to day and makes fun of me and tells me I need to get a haircut more often, that's a big deal. That's a big deal for me. That's a big deal for me.
It's big. I'm trying to hold back tears. I'm just thinking about it, like just my wife encouraging me. In transparency, like when I started Lenore Coaching, my wife really wasn't all the way on board with it, especially like trying to flesh out materialize ideas into a actual business model. I can't say like she was all the way sold on it. So like I feel in a lot of ways, I'm more than anybody, I'm trying to prove myself to my wife. And like releasing the book, she tore up that book. Like she made some edits, and she just was really proud of me. I love my wife, and I value her approval. I really value her opinion, and it just means a lot. So I'd say like that has been really cool. And what ends up happening for me, Phil, is it almost gives me like this superpower, right? Not that I'm trying to work for people's approval, but man, when I know my wife believes in me, bro, I'm unstoppable. Like, it's nothing that nobody can do. Like, I have some really cool business things in the work, and I'm encouraged because, like, I know if I fast forward a year from now, 3 years, 5 years from now, it's gonna substantially grow, and that's really because my wife believes in me. And so that's probably been the biggest, like, sense of reward and accomplishment with releasing purpose-driven work.
Nah, man, you got me almost speechless because I was about to say, I think, like, talking about purpose and values, I think, in these recent times, I think as I investigate what drives me is that I feel that same notion. Like, if I can look my wife in the face and she's just like genuinely proud of me, like, regardless of the paycheck or regardless, of titles and status, that she's like I come home, I say I did this, and she's proud of it. She's like, you're making a difference. That does give you some juice that I don't think a lot of people realize. It gives you juice. Like, I don't think I need any more juice, but the fact that, I'll be honest, like, throughout my whole career, up till Mason, I struggled to say, like, finding my lane. Do I belong in higher ed? Do I belong in work? And my wife was like, keep at it. You're good. You got it. And now she's like, I remember her saying this specifically to me. She said, since you've been working at Mason and actually care about going to work and all this stuff, she's like, I literally am so proud. Like, she said I always knew it was there. She told me, she's like, you just needed to be at a place that saw the gifts that I always saw in you. Like, being outgoing and all that. She's like, when you find a place that could tap into that, you're golden. And she's like, I think you have it. I think you found it. And hearing that reiterated from someone that, as I said, I have a high opinion of. I was like, she created a monster, because now the person you met at Vase was not a person that I was when I worked previously to Mason. So like, I don't know, like, people don't realize the impact of, and that, like, I think this goes along with the book and the purpose, the small things that you said, what can people do to support you? Sometimes it don't even cost money. It could be like, you are literally not a dream killer. You're not a dream killer. You literally uplift people. So hearing you say that about your wife brought up a lot of for me, because I think that's the same way I felt, right? Like, dang, I actually did it. Okay, I'm good. Like, I mean, I want to be more successful. I want to rise up in my career. I want to do these things. But the fact that, like, I'm good with my wife, I'm like, okay, I'm not a disappointment to someone that I really care about their opinion a lot.
100%, man.
A lot. Yeah. So, man, this is really a good conversation. And, I think I'm glad that we had this, and I'm glad that we're sharing things, because I'm hearing your story. I'm hearing a lot with my story. And then I think a lot of people will feel the same. As you know, it's time for Shot for Shot. This is the part of the show where I ask you a random question. You ask me a random question. You want to go first, or I'll go first?
I think you should go first so I can brainstorm.
Okay, that's what everyone always says. All right. If you could play in the league right now, 100%, your body is good. There's no hurt, no bones hurting. You feel 100% healthy. What team would you play for, and what position? I know you already had a position in college. Would you change? What team, NFL, what team, and what position, and why?
Yeah, that's good. I'm going to just say the Oakland Raiders.
Oakland too, not LA, Las Vegas.
Oh yeah. I guess they're the Vegas Raiders. I'm originally from California, so I've just rep. I had to choose either 49ers or Oakland, so I'm gonna go with Oakland. So Oakland Raiders. And you know what? I'm about to piss off my college coaches because they try to change my position. I play DN. You know what I would play if I was in the league? I would play offensive tackle. I would play offensive tackle.
You would go in?
Huh?
You would go in to a tackle.
No, like, so defensive end is
your defensive end. You said offensive tackle. I thought you said defensive tackle. Offensive tackle.
I would be an offensive tackle, because in JMU, they were trying to move me to offensive line. And, I was very stubborn, and so I would actually play offensive tackle. I'm very athletic, but I'm a big guy too. People don't realize how much I weigh. So being athletic and big, I think it could be in my benefit. So I will play offensive tackle.
There you go. And then you get a lot of money. And then if you protect the quarterback, they get you cars and stuff. That's what I heard. They give you the running back, I heard all these stories like Barry Sanders or whatever, if he gets a milestone, he'll buy all the linemen like Rolexes and stuff. So I take that.
Hey,
That'd be kind of awesome. You know,
facts,
shout out.
facts.
They treat you right if you're good. So go ahead.
Question for you. All right, Phil. I know you're going to release a book. So when you do release a book, what is it going to be called? What is it going to be focused on?
Well, I mean, I have a lot of ideas, and I don't. I'll be totally honest. It's not a matter of insecurity or being. I literally just don't. I think I just take on too much like that. Like it's more the time management. Like I was reading like how long it took you. My issue is not like, oh, I'm worried about it. I would throw out a book out there today if I could. Maybe talk to text or something. But like, like I said, we have a different mindset. Yeah, I'm just outgoing anyway. I think it would just be like the labor. That's like, man, it must take a long time to write a book. That's time management, and my time management is trash. But that's something in the queue. I already even have a Google document just with the brainstorm of an idea for a book. So it's in there because for me, like you said, usually for books, most people are not an author first. They use books to reiterate. So I like to be a public speaker.
Yeah,
I've learned that like majority of the public speakers I look up to have a book. The book funnels their public speaking, right? It's secondary, meaning they go on a book tour and they talk about their book. So it's one of those things that if you want to get into the public speaking space, it's assumed that you have a book, right? It's just what it is, right? And so the book idea that I'm playing around with, and I still kind of want to do someday down the line, is called Be Happy Black Man. I think it was called Be Happy Man. No, it's like, yeah, Be Happy Black Man. No, hold on, let me Google it. I Google it. Look at my Google Drive. It's something about happiness and blackness. You know what I'm saying?
That. I like that.
Let me see.
It a lot, bro.
Let me see. Happy Black.
That's so needed, man.
But yeah, I think it's that. Yeah, the book project. Oh, here we go. Be Well, Black Man. That's the title I have. Be Well, Black Man. And basically what it was is the Be Well, Black Man. If I were going to write this book, is about taking the concepts that are naturally known about well-being, gratitude, appreciation, mindfulness, awe, everything that's already out there about all these different the science of happiness, and just funneling it to make it appropriate for Blackness. So we'll talk about the science of like for instance, my thought is like for the gratitude chapter, right? There's science that say that gratitude, you throw the numbers in there, the science of gratitude. But the way that Black men show gratitude is not the same as like some formalized thank you note or an email. It might just be like that uncle. Like, I see you doing good things, young blood, or like
absolutely.
Or like you say that people like keep your head up, king. We call each other kings. And or like, how we can roast each other and out of nowhere say, I love you boys, and then roast each other again. That's gratitude. You know what I'm saying? So what I was gonna do is just go through all the big pillars of well-being and just tell maybe like I say code switching part of it, but the culturally appropriate or culturally accepted way that Black men express all these things, right?
I love that.
Maybe it doesn't look the same, as like yoga, and we're not doing yoga and special tea and stuff. We're doing it like mindfulness might be just going for a walk, with your friends.
That book is so dynamic, bro. And it's so needed. We need you to write that book, bro.
Be Well, Black Man. I mean, it's in there. Like, no joke. I think the last time I opened it, it was like 2 years ago. But that was what I was thinking. Like, that's Positive Philter. That's like what I want to do. I want to talk about wellness for Black men. I just, like you said, that time. So that it wasn't like typos and all that. I have the language. I just need to get to do it.
It's not going to take a long time. It's not. What you probably need is you need to have working sessions. You probably need somebody that is more of an executor and just sit down, like not sit down like with them to help you write it. Just physically, like, all right, it's Thursday at 1:00. We gonna have a working session. So that's all you need. It's gonna go by quicker than what you think it takes. It does not take a long time.
Excellent. Well, you inspired me, and I'm gonna keep going. And so one thing I like to think about is shout outs and plugs. So this is the part of the show called shout outs and plugs. You get to show love and shout outs to anyone you want to show love to. And then plugs are the things that you want me to tell the listeners to follow up with.
Absolutely, man. Well, all glory to God, man. I just, my coworker asked me, something along the lines of, what's the biggest challenge in your life right now? And for me, it's stewardship and discipline. And so I just want to thank God because there's always a healthy tension in my life. So just shout outs to the Lord. My mother, my father, just for always supporting me. I want to thank my wife for supporting, for being a leader in our family, believing in me. I want to thank like some creatives that have inspired me. So shout outs to Vad Lee. He wrote his book Purpose Over Position. Shout outs to Eugene Holloman. I think he has 3 or 4 books. The Athlete Student series. I want to thank my big bro Shelton Johnson. He's inspired me, and people that probably I haven't actually talked to, like Arthur Moats, ever since we've graduated, but he's changed my life in more ways than not. Like shout outs to Moats, because I was somebody growing up that was always like had to compete with everybody. But he did something that was a game changer at a young age, and he got mentored. We had this guy that we went to school with named Kevin Winston. Kevin Winston is the best defensive end I've ever seen. Arthur Moats is the second. So shout outs to Moats for being receptive to mentorship, because as a 35-year-old, now I see the value in it. As a 20-year-old, 19-year-old, I don't see the value. Shout outs to Moats. But yeah, man, there's so many people that I can thank. Shout outs to Mickey Matthews for kicking me off the football team. I needed it more than ever. Yeah, so many people. But yeah, I guess plugs, man. Folks can check out Purpose Driven Work. It's on Amazon. If you want a signed copy, you can go to my website at lenorecoaching.com. My biggest business is career and workforce readiness. So we have a program called Momentum, and we partner with the Mayor's Youth Academy in Richmond. Shout outs to Dr. Lerone Joseph for writing my foreword in my book. He's somebody that I really look up to, and I appreciate his friendship. But yes, if you are an organization that is trying to engage, young people, you're trying to help them to get career ready. We've partnered with the Mayor's Youth Academy. We've partnered within the city of Richmond. We're partnering right now with Next Up. We're partnering, fingers crossed, with the Boys and Girls Club and the Department of the Juvenile Detention Center here in Richmond. And we've also partnered with Chesterfield County Public Schools. So this program is needed. Like, I'm not selling me, I'm selling like the need for career and workforce readiness. So for any organizations that need career and workforce readiness, please hit us up. You can shoot me an email at info@lenorecoaching.com. Visit my website, lenorecoaching.com. I'm on social media as well, just Quintrel Lenore. I'm on Instagram and Twitter. So yeah, man, that's I think that's it. I don't know how well I did with giving the shout outs.
I love it. And you're the first person to shout out someone that kicked you off something. I might do that too. Shout out. No, I have, I'm fueled by that, John, too. But I'm like, thank you for not letting me in certain things, because I wouldn't have gone somewhere else. So I love that, because I have some stories like that too. We vibe on that. Positive Filter listeners, it's been a great episode. Q, please follow him. I'll put all the books, everything that you need in the show notes. One thing I'd like to say is that every episode, as I said earlier, every episode is dedicated to the memory of my father-in-law, Jeff Kirsch. So please consider contributing to the Jeff Kirsch Anti-Hunger Fund for those that are working in the advocacy work to fight food insecurity. It's very important to him, and it's very important for me to share his legacy in every episode of the podcast. Please like, subscribe, review, leave a rating, elevate this, share this podcast with your family and friends. That's the way that we continue to grow this podcast. And thank you so much for listening, and we're out.
Awesome, man.
Thank you for listening to Positive Filter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.